bit on McKesson. A lot of people don't know about the company. It's a Fortune 14 company. We have more than 43,000 employees. It's going on 100 years old. We have over 200,000 physicians that use our technology and our services. We are the #1 company in pharmaceutical distribution in the US and Canada, and we own the top-ranked electronic health record specifically built for oncologists, and it's used by over 1,300 physicians within our network. I tried to get updated information from this. Last year we did make some purchases in Europe that allow basically these same numbers are now in Europe, so we've pretty much doubled the size of the business. I believe that was approved a couple of months ago. So US Oncology Research is really a small branch of what McKesson Specialty Health is. So it's a select group of practices that practice primarily community-based oncology. That's our key niche in our market. We do have some larger organizations that work with universities and things, but most of our business is the community-based oncology clinic. We're in 66 research sites. That makes up 194 locations throughout the US, covering 18 states, and our number of investigators fluctuates anywhere between 900 and 1,000 investigators that actively participate on the trials that we bring to them. So we are currently based in the Woodlands, which is just north of Houston, Texas. You can see that a big group of our physician base is in Texas, but we have spread out to cover the rest of the nation as well. So clinical research. So I did a couple of definitions of what clinical research is, and you know, one of the struggles I had preparing for this talk was the audience. You're a very different audience than I would ever speak to. I'm by far the least technology savvy person in this room, I'm sure. So I was going to explain a little bit of what clinical research is, so I can hopefully help you understand the troubles that we were having with that. So I actually like the Wikipedia definition a little better than the NIH definition. So clinical research is a branch of healthcare science that determines the safety, effectiveness of medications, devices, and diagnostic products used to treat, primarily for human use. These can use to prevent, treat, diagnose any sort of disease. And the key thing I like in this definition is it designates that clinical research is different from clinical practice. Research isn't always a treatment. We always hopefully it will become treatments, but when it's research, there's a high number of failure involved in that. So you know, anytime you're sitting at home, you're watching TV, and you see the ads come on, and they go through, please contact your doctor if you recognize any of these symptoms. All those symptoms were found from clinical research. So that's a big part of our business, is finding out what works, and more importantly, finding out what doesn't work, so we can eliminate that and get that off the table relatively quickly. So at US Oncology Research, we work very closely with our practices. We actually consider most of our physicians and our practices to be our partners in our business, not necessarily our customers. We really look at that as we're in this together. We're here to help them. They're here to help us, and hopefully meet the needs of sponsors. We work with most major pharmaceutical sponsors in the world, and then of course the FDA is governing that entire business. So, and that's really probably where our problems originate, is the FDA. Anytime you're going to treat people with an unregulated product, there's a series of applications and processes and disclosures and everything you have to go through to make it legal to do that. So that's my business. That's what I do. I make sure that our 900 doctors are doing that. We're doing it effectively. We're doing it quickly, that we're saving all that documentation, that we can supply it in audits. We had 3 FDA inspections last year. Luckily, we passed all of those and did very well. But with that is a large amount of documentation that comes with that. So that presented a problem for us. So US Oncology Research, this is really our expertise, scientific and clinical expertise. Our 900 doctors are very savvy, they're very smart, they're very ingrained in the world of research. We have now that we're a part of McKesson, we have huge technology advantages with our electronic medical record. We have quick startup. If you compare our startup for a clinical trial, we are, even our sponsor customers will say, you're the quickest, you're the fastest. And then we have central site management. So we really do offer our physicians a central management service, so they don't have to have contracting and regulatory affairs and IRBs and things in place locally. which would be a huge cost for them. We centralize that. We support that out of the Woodlands office. That's where our partnership comes into place. And then we offer remote source data verification through our electronic medical records. So we're really trying to eliminate the need for the heavy travel that comes with monitoring a clinical trial. The sponsor is required by the agency to go out and make sure trials are being run correctly, data is being collected correctly, that everything's being reported correctly. And if you can do that remotely, that obviously saves a tremendous amount of money for our sponsors. Quick startup. This is really where I was challenged last year by my vice president to basically build a scalable business that could be quick, that didn't increase headcount in a pretty labor-intensive environment that we worked in. So the evil condition or a thing that spreads destructively is the definition of cancerous. And that's why I used that, because our process that I'm about to walk you through, I think fit that very nicely. It was an evil condition, and it was starting to spread pretty destructively as we started to build the business out, started to open more trials, with an idea that we would probably grow the number of trials that we open by 10% every year as we continue to play in this market. So I'm going to walk you through quickly what our process was. So a sponsor will come to us with specific trial specifications, specific forms that they want filled out on top of everything that the FDA wants. That applies to every doctor that we're selecting to be on a particular trial. That could be 5 doctors, it could be up to the whole 900. It really just depends on what we're looking at and what we're studying in that case. So that comes to us, and then my team, which is a staff of 10 to 12 usually, goes through the process of preparing all those documents. So those, some of them look very similar to what you would do your taxes on. There are a lot of forms with a lot of addresses, a lot of phone numbers, a lot of zip codes. It was a very manual and a very tedious process for us to prepare all of that with accuracy, send it to physicians, or actually would send it to their practice staff by email with hundreds of PDF or Word file attachments to an email. The staff would print those things off, deliver it to their physicians in a little folder for them to sign, sometimes at multiple locations. An example, our Rocky Mountain Cancer Center is spread out in 11 different locations throughout the entire Colorado area. So we would send all that documentation to one person at their practice. They would divide it up, email it out to all the different locations. They would print everything off. Doctors would sign everything, and it would FedEx back to us. We would open up all those FedExes, we would file everything, we would archive it into our repository system, we would index everything so we could find it later on, and then we would package all those original files up and ship them to the sponsor. Again, another FedEx shipment there, and then the sponsor would go through, file everything that they have centrally, and get back to us that everything's okay and everything's approved, and we would move on with our business. We do that about 3,000 times every month. And we estimated when we were going through the process of redesigning this workflow and seeing, you know, a cost benefit, if there was a cost benefit, you know, do we just throw more people at this problem? We estimated that it took 12 minutes of time to collect one single signature. That's actually labor time of somebody filling out a form, printing a form, carrying a form to a doctor, packaging that up into FedEx, shipping that to FedEx, not to count the FedEx delay time that's involved in cost with all that. So 12 minutes per page, 3,000 times a month is a considerable amount of labor time that we were spending just simply collecting signatures. And that doesn't even go into the fact, so if you've ever done any Six Sigma work or trying to define process, there's this thing called the hidden factory when you're looking for defects. So you have this end product and it got through fine, but what you have to do is go through and find out all the defects in there. So we had a large number of defects through this entire process where a zip code was keyed wrong. An investigator's middle initial was left off the form that required a middle initial. Whatever it is, I mean, there's 100 different elements that could go wrong with that. Not to mention everything that could get lost. So if you, we were estimating we were probably losing 1 to 3% of the documents every month. Doesn't seem like much, but when it's 3,000 documents, once that adds up to quite a bit a year of just paper getting lost or paper getting filed incorrectly on whatever the situation was. So we had a lot of rework in this, and every time there was a rework, it started the whole process over again because these were original files and they were having to go back to the physician. back to the FedExing, back to logging everything in through our repository system. So, and the old joke with physicians, is that they're incredibly smart people, but you can never read their handwriting. Dates were completely illegible about 30% of the time, and that had to be redone every time a date was illegible. If you had to question it, we basically had to redo it at that point in time. I tell the staff to try to encourage them a little bit. Is that it has to be completely legible, because we've had many audits that come 10, 15 years later, and to go back and prove that something was signed before something was actually done can be very difficult if a date's illegible, even by a few days. It's really easy to, when something comes in, to say, obviously that's 2014, not 2017, because we're not into that. But many years from now, that may be a little bit more difficult to prove. So I want to focus a little bit on the preparing documents portion, because this is really where Zia and Kristen and Mike came in and helped us streamline this workflow and this process. So what would happen in the past is my staff we have a CTMS, which is a clinical trial management system, which is a database of trial information and physician information, and it was all the areas where we would pull data from, and then we had some spreadsheets in there too, still working with that technology, where we would just save listings of information of doctors and where they work. The sponsor would provide us some trial information. We would group all that investigator information with some sponsor information and prepare all the documents that the FDA requires. And those would be exported into either Word files or PDF files and attached to emails and sent out to all of our practices. So our solution, I had to come up with a solution that would basically allow us to scale our business, not add extra headcount to the people managing this process, and speed up that quick start time that I worked on. Right now, our packet delivery time was 35 days. So to send all that documentation out to a physician group, get everything back, on average, it was 35 days. We've been measuring this for a number of years, and it was just never getting any quicker. No matter what kind of deadlines you tell people, with all the rework and the workflows issues that we were having, it was continuously taking us a month just to gather the signatures and process. So we want to get that faster. So our solution was to go completely digital with our documentation solution. So we laid out a series of requirements for what we were wanting. So we had to be able to use files from any sponsor. That's going to always be a requirement for us. The pharmaceutical companies are going to come to us and want very specific forms filled out. And that will be different for every trial, for every sponsor that we work with. And we weren't going to be able to have a central form that we could just create and have the investigators fill out all the time. So had to be very customizable. Basically, any trial that came to us, we weren't going to be able to turn it down because it wasn't going to be able to work through this workflow. So, and then we had to be able to populate those forms with our current database information, and we had to be able to repeat that daily for any trial that would come through our system. So, and then we had to automate the delivery of that. So we had to deliver the completed forms. We had to integrate that with our active network directory, and then we had to be able to track all of that. So a key piece of all this, 3,000 documents going out and coming back every month, is tracking all that. We had a pretty crude system in place, but it required a lot of manual data entry. So that was one of the things that we had to be able to automate as well, because a tracking system that's supposed to be a service to our sites and our doctors to make sure something got back, if it's taking us 3 days just to key in the data, it's not very useful to them to make sure that something got back to us. So we wanted to automate that as well. And then we wanted to automate the return of everything. So part of this whole process was to put a digital signature capture in place, so that physicians could actually sign everything digitally in a compliant way with Part 11, return those back to us. Alfresco would notify us that that document had been returned. We could establish a workflow where someone could manually go and QC the document, either accept it or reject it based off of the requirements. And then it would track that return. It would track the quality of status. And then hopefully, once everything's approved, it would store the documents into our existing document repository. We did have a system in place already for long-term repository, and then track that document has been returned, it's been QC'd, it's been approved, and it's been archived, and then we could then deliver everything to our sponsor clients. So that was our what we laid out. And this is our workflow that we created that we feel like met that goal or accomplished that. So normally when you build a swim lane chart, the idea is to get lanes out of the picture, to streamline. So what the idea is, you want one line that goes all the way across, that makes one person responsible for everything, that makes the process go a lot further or a lot more smoothly. So we created an actual swim lane here, and that's our, I have labeled here the Alfresco swim lane. So those are just dots of the task that does for us. So the sponsor comes to us, delivers the forms to us. We create some templates based off of what the sponsor gives us. We decided to work exclusively in PDF for those. So we build the templates. We load those into Alfresco. We tell Alfresco the study that we want launched. It goes through, it pulls all the data that we've associated with that trial, fills the form out for us, sends it to our doctors, notifies them that they've received a document. The doctor can then, that's the practice swim lane, they can actually go in, sign the thing with our digital signature client, return it back to the same email address that delivered it to them. That goes into Alfresco. It acknowledges that it's been returned. Then someone from my team can go in and track that. And that's the step that goes back to us. They can acknowledge that it's been returned, that it's been approved, and then it goes back into Alfresco once it's been approved, and it stays there forever. So copies of that go into our normal repository system as well. So we think we did come up with a pretty clever solution. Our rollout, we went into production in August. We spent a lot of time training staff on what we were building here, what we actually, because most of my team, Alfresco was completely new to them. Building templates was completely new for them. So it was a bit of a learning curve for us to learn the nuances and the technical aspects of doing that. But once we got everybody kind of up to speed, it didn't take too terribly long. And then we had to roll out and train physicians on the digital signature capture and put SOPs and things in place to make sure that we would, in a compliant environment, we would meet all those goals. So I put the orange box on here. So did we meet our goal? From an automation standpoint, yes, we absolutely met our goal. That system is working pretty much flawlessly. Our problems that we're having are the red dots. So the investigators buying into the digital signature capture puts a little more responsibility in their hands to monitor their email a little more closely, not to delete things, and then they're used to really literally someone coming by their desk and saying, sign this, packaging it up and walking it off. This puts a little more responsibility on them to monitor that themselves, to log into the system themselves, to key in their password themselves, to make sure that all that is being done in a really compliant way. So, but it's becoming more successful. So I was telling Kristen just this morning, anytime a document comes back from a doctor, I have a little Alfresco folder in my email, so it tells me when the workflow has been returned, and pretty much every day I can walk in and see that number just growing every day. So we unfortunately rolled it out through the holidays, which probably wasn't the best idea with people taking long vacations and things like that, but now that we're into the new year, we're getting a lot more buy-in to it. People are understanding. It's really just a matter of just changing habits with a lot of those physicians, and I think we're getting there. So everything outside of that red box, like I said, it has worked flawlessly. It's been a perfect solution for us. We will probably invest some more efforts this year into fixing the red dot, making that phase a little more user-friendly for the physicians. It doesn't have any mobile capabilities right now, which, I think someone mentioned just a minute ago, that's where everybody's going. If I can get physicians to where they can sign things on their mobile phone, that helps us out tremendously, because most of them are going from their practice to hospitals, day in and day out. And some of them have estimated they do about 90% of their email workflow on a mobile device. So telling them they have to go sit down at a computer to actually sign something is a little bit of a hassle, but I think we'll be able to improve that, and we'll be able to expand on that, and then it will hopefully meet our long-term goal of being able to deliver trials to sites in a much quicker way. So right now, our typical window is 12 weeks. 35 days of that's completely on me, because I have to tell people I need 6 weeks just to collect the signatures. Hopefully we can get that down to a week to 10 days. We do have some select trials that we do that we are doing same-day turnaround on, and we've already committed to that for about a dozen of our trials. So it remains to be seen how well that will go, but we have committed to that for about a dozen of our active trials that we can do same-day turnaround now. So hopefully I didn't, oh, actually I am right on time, which was one of my worries going through this. So I did leave about 10 minutes if anybody does have specific questions about our struggles, our workflows, issues we've had since we've had the rollout. Our current or our ultimate? Our ultimately, we would like to have one. I did have some we did have one in place. So we use ImageNow from Perceptive Software. It was just primarily used by our finance groups. In order to offset the cost of that, we integrated a lot of our research files into that. When we moved into our building in 2008, the research department took up half of a floor of a building just in file cabinets. So we had a big project where everything was scanned and moved into ImageNow. Ultimately, ImageNow really doesn't meet our compliance needs from the FDA perspective as far as the way the system's validated and the way we have it set up or not. Alfresco now does do that. Since when we installed it, we did go through the validation steps when we installed that, or I'm told that we did. Like I said, I'm not the technologist, but they tell me all the paperwork's in place and it could pass any of our audits. So ultimately, I would like for everything to reside in one spot. But I do have other needs and restrictions that right now are preventing that. And one of that's outside clients need access to these files. And right now, and that goes back to some of the compliance issues. ImageNow, we really do tell our sponsors those are really just copies of everything. It's not the original files. Our original files are now in Alfresco. So hopefully we can get down to one system. It's just figuring out what that will be. We don't have a clear vision on right now.
You mentioned 35 days down to sort of 7 to 10 days, single day turnaround. Give a sense of sort of the financial impact of not having the FedEx and moving some of that forward. Anything in your back of your mind of what that savings is?
So, well, just in FedEx, I spend about $90,000 a year. Just in FedEx costs. So that's the immediate turnaround. But in the slide when I covered, U.S. Oncology, what do we do well? That quick startup is important to us. We had a number of instances last year where we were fortunate enough to be able to be, our physicians in a community-based setting were able to be the first physicians in the world to give somebody a new investigational product. It's exciting for them. It's exciting for their patients. Like I said, it's not always a treatment, but it's really exciting to be a part of the cutting edge. And that's really what drives them in the research business, is being part of the latest, the greatest, the newest, and being able to offer that to their patients. So the quicker we can offer that to them, the quicker we move the whole industry forward. A product going to market, typically by the time it's identified in the lab and structure, it's about 14 years. So anywhere you can cut down on that, and the entire industry is getting faster about doing that. And I think we're positioning ourselves in a place to where a client can come to us and we can present them. We could be presenting patients to trials in 4 to 8 weeks rather than typically 12 to 16 weeks. I really think we can get there in just the next few months. Mm-hmm. We don't actually have a lot of data on the measurement of that. So like I said, we've collected probably about 3,000 documents since we've rolled this out. So we have, but the time it takes for us to actually process the document, which was about 8 of that 12 minutes, is down to about 2 per document. Now that's a little bit of an average because what we're doing is we're taking time it takes to actually build the template. which we're really slow at right now. I have a team of biology majors, and telling them they have to build a template that Alfresco can put data into, it was a little bit of a struggle, but we got there. And you know, some of the software we use to build those templates, we're not completely happy with either. So we're looking at different options for that. It's a little clunky and a little probably more than what we need. So, so I don't have an exact number on it, but from my team's perspective, it takes a day's worth of work, and it's 2 hours. You know, so something that was taking us a whole day to prepare, to email, to deliver. We set up a template in the morning. It takes us maybe 2 hours to build that template, and it is literally the push of a button. We have a little button they built for us called Generate Documents, and we hit that button, and the emails go out to however many physicians are on that trial really instantly. It's pretty impressive. So, but like I said, we've just been using it for a few months, so to really understand the full impact of it is probably a little early, because we've been dealing with the grumblings of people that don't like having to be responsible for logging into systems and things. Not necessarily responsible for it. It's just creating a hassle into their work day. So I don't have a really good number on. You know, I haven't sat down with the stopwatch to measure all that out and then divided it out amongst you know, the number of documents that we send out for a particular instance.